As we get a bigger system, bigger home, bigger building, we need more water per ton of refrigeration effect. Busy, I guess. Climate conditions can limit usage, of course, on surface water. We have environmental concerns more so with surface water with, say, the Cataraqui Regional Conservation Authority, the Ministry of Fisheries, the Ministry of Natural Resources might come into play when we're dealing with surface water systems, open loop systems. And then the big one is fouling becomes a factor when we're dealing with surface water, open systems. Closed loop can be in different types of configurations. First one being vertical, or your borehole, okay? This is the one that you'd see mostly in an urban environment because we have land space restrictions. So we need to go vertically with that closed loop, as you can see in the diagram. I guess I spelled wrong. Least amount of total piping, get some spelling mistake. Can require the least amount of, we got an overlap, least amount of pumping energy is what it should say there. Disadvantage on a vertical loop, of course, though, is it's very costly to drill holes in the ground. And that's going to be dependent on what we're drilling into. Are we drilling into a sandy environment, a clay environment, a rock environment, right? We move towards Gananoque, we're going to hit the shield. We're going to be drilling directly into rock. Backfilling requires special material and skills, and we also have a potential for a heat buildup. We're dumping that waste heat into the ground in the summer time. We can affect the performance of the equipment if we can't dissipate that heat out fast enough. Horizontal loop, we can have, of course, trenching costs less than drilling holes, right? If we're building a new home, we may already be excavated quite a bit of our lot. We might be bringing in large amounts of backfill in terms of what grading we want on the lot. So we can see a drastic reduction in the cost of the loop, okay? With a geo-exchange system, basically the cost difference is really in the loop, okay? To buy a normal furnace and a normal air conditioning system or to buy your geo-exchange heat pump, those costs are relatively similar. The cost difference comes in the loop. So the loop is where you're looking to save money, okay? So one of the ways to save money is to use, hopefully you have the land space to do a horizontal loop. Now we're dealing with, of course, burying it below the frost line, right? So ideally we want to be in excess of 5 feet down. So we have to have the proper type of property for that. Greater risk of piping damage during backfilling because, of course, we're backfilling a larger area now. Greater ground temperature variation at 5-6 feet down than there would be at the vertical loop, which may be down 200 feet in the ground. Of course, when you talk about heat pumps, we can look at both air source heat pumps and we can look at ground source heat pumps, okay? Heat pumps, of course, got a really bad name back in the 70s, the 80s. There's a lot of technology that failed on a regular basis, okay? Technology's progressed. The equipment's a lot better designed, has a lot more capacity to be able to get higher efficiencies and performances out of it. Air source heat pumps are now able to, with inverter technology, it allows for variable speed compressors and variable speed outdoor fans, we can run down to minus 30 degrees. Okay? Whereas before we wouldn't necessarily run below freezing, below zero. Okay? But new technologies allow us to utilize air source heat pumps. Costs are typically about twice the cost of putting in your normal furnace and air conditioning system. Geo-exchange system, of course, though, gives us an even better performance because that air source heat pump is going to give us, say, 2 to 3 times, 200 to 300%. Okay? We go move up to geo-exchange system, now we're up into 400% efficiencies. We can reduce your cost of operation upwards of 66%. So save 66% of that fuel cost. But recognizing that the cost on that system can be upwards of 5 times. And that's really dependent on, are we able to put in that horizontal loop? Or what are we drilling into if we're doing a vertical bore? Okay. In terms of the grants and incentives, you do see through a Eco Energy grant system that they have grants for your air source system and they have grants for your ground source system. Important, you can get $400 here from the grant on the federal side and of course matching funds from the provincial side for that ground source, or that air source heat pump. But one thing you have to remember is you're going to look for the efficiency rating, which is 14 SEER. SEER standing for Seasonal Energy Efficiency Ratio. Okay, that's how we choose equipment. Refrigeration, air conditioning equipment is rated by SEER ratings. So the SEER rating being your cooling rating, but they mandate that you select a piece of equipment that has a minimum efficiency to be applicable for the grant. Now on the Geo Exchange, we have to ensure that it is installed to a CSA standard, C448, okay? And that will qualify you for $3,500 grant from the federal government, and again, matching funds from the provincial side. And then you're going to get, of course, the tax and PST incentives, as Rick mentioned as well. If you already have a ground source heat pump system, it probably is an older system. So now with new technologies, we can get a more efficient system. So they'll provide you a grant of upwards of $1,400 on the federal side to replace that old system with a more efficient air condition or heat pump system. And you'll find the same thing in terms of just general air conditioning with the grants, is they want you to go to higher performing machines. One of the big things to note though, okay, is heat pumps need to be installed by qualified firms. So one of the switch members, Haven Homes, has the necessary qualifications to meet this CSA standard. The Canadian Geothermal Coalition has paperwork that has to be filled out by someone that's received the appropriate training and is accredited to do that installation. So you need to ensure that you hire somebody with those credentials. What did I do there? I'm used to mine.
Your presentation setting.
Okay. Yeah, it's all done, right?
Yeah. So we can start the next speaker, but yeah, this is just, we're recording these presentations as we go, and this is just what we have to do. So the next, who's coming up next?